All right, guys, you tuned in because we're talking DSP and we're talking DSP with Alpine, one of the brands that have the most to offer in this category. But more specifically, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the higher end echelon things. When it comes to Alpine, of course, we're talking about the status line and more specifically, a deeper dive into the HDP-D90 DSP integrated 12 channel amplifier. Yes, that's a mouthful, but I got the right guy to help us out. We've got Colin Vargo from Alpine joining us today to break it all down. This is CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM, all about Alpine DSP. And it starts now. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu, and you are locked into CMA Networks, where we talk mobile electronics day in and day out. Today, we're talking DSP with Alpine. Yes, the brand that brings you F#1 status and the craziest stuff on the planet, but they've actually kind of trickled down all that technology and came up with a really cool option for you audiophiles out there. They're really looking for that higher end sound with a status line. This is the DSP section, so we're going to dive right into exactly what that's all about. So let me introduce my guest here today, Colin Vargo from Alpine. What are we going to be talking about to really break out what this thing can do?
So today we're going to be talking about the Alpine HDP-D90 14-channel processor with 12 channels of amplified power on board.
Well, Colin, that's a whole lot of power and a whole lot of channels to boot. But first, a quick note from our sponsor, SiriusXM, reminding you why it's always a great attachment sale. When we come back, let's find out what this status DSP is all about. We'll see you after the break.
Hey, Paul here with SiriusXM, and I'd like to talk to you about attachment selling and why the SiriusXM product is one of the best things to add, especially since we don't trade dollars with any other category. I could go through all of this, but let's hear what some of our dealers have to say.
It's an easy add-on that takes, 10, 15 minutes if we're running an antenna, 1 minute if we've got an adapter to plug it into the factory SiriusXM antenna, and it's extra money, so no brainer.
I present it to every customer because a lot of customers don't know what all they can do with Sirius. They don't know what all content they could have. It just makes too much sense not to sell it.
It creates a different customer loyalty and customer security when you explain to them why it's a better experience. Just gets them back in the door. And then the next car, they're already asking for it again. So it just keeps selling itself. It makes more sense.
Well, there you have it. You heard from our dealers. Just remember some of the best practices. Make sure you have one on display so you can demo it. Make sure you're taking advantage of our rewards program, because if you're not taking advantage of that, you're leaving even more money on the table. Make sure you got our POP up on display. And other than that, just make sure you're recommending it.
And welcome back to the show. As you can see in the middle here, we have our expert guest, Colin Vargo. Colin, thank you for coming back. And of course, our good friend from Gen-Tech International, who is the official distribution partner for all things Alpine in Canada, Mr. Chris Patience. How you doing, Chris?
Hey, Ben. How's it going? Thanks for having us.
Listen, we're going to get geeky today because, all year I get to talk about car audio, but this DSP, we get to go, take a few layers off and really dive into what makes DSP, at least for Alpine, really tick. So obviously, we're talking about this really powerful unit. It's got lots of channels, 12 channels of amplification, and an additional 2 RCAs out, which means a total of 14 channels of processed power. But before we dive into the specifics of this particular unit, let's talk a little bit about status. I dropped in the beginning there, Colin, that F#1 status, which is the pinnacle, the highest echelon, the top of the line, is obviously where this technology is coming from. And then you guys came up with status afterwards. So for those that don't know, explain a little bit where status fits and how this all works with Alpine.
So status is our top tier and what we consider the attainable top tier performer. So, we knew that F#1 status, having the price tag that it does, pushes it out of the reach of a lot of people. But status makes some of the technologies in F#1 status affordable for the rest of us. It's a product that's near and dear to my heart because it's a phenomenal sounding solution for the vehicle. Personally, for me, it gives a very smooth, natural sound to it. Doesn't take a lot of fighting to get this product to sound good. Really, with minor tuning, it sounds good right out of the box, but has tons and tons of tuning capability to make it your own.
Well, I love what you're saying there. I love the fact that Alpine, kind of explores newer technologies like with the F1 status. And, you wait a little bit if you're patient enough, trickle down, and here we go, some affordable stuff that we can play with. Chris, going to you, I know you have a little bit of personal experience with this product. And like Colin said, this makes it attainable. But, it's not that it's expensive, because here's how I look at it. Before we had to buy so many different multiple components to make a system work. That's one thing. This is all in one. That's first. The second part of it is integration, as we talked about during our OEM integration sessions. It's so imperative now. It's great that you want sound, but you got to get the right signal and make it work in a car. So from your point of view, this status HDP-D90 that we're talking about today, how does this stack up for you?
Well, for me, it stacks up. I mean, it has 12 channels of powered output, right? But it has 14 channels of onboard DSP to actually tune the full system. Why you would need that, especially on an OEM side, is cars nowadays don't just have two speakers in the front anymore under your dash or something like that. Your chimes might be coming from your center channel, and this is going to be a product where you're going to be able to sum your channels, have your outputs going where it needs to, replace the speakers, get the status products in there. And some of the features that we're going to discuss later on in this, you're going to find predates even, back into the 80s, right? We're going to touch on the copper chassis and why we're using it and other cool features that it does have on it. So we're really excited to have this conversation with you guys today.
Well, you found the right guy to talk about it, because I love getting geeky with it, and I think I found the right two guys to do it with. So let's get into it. Without further ado, I think the first part of our conversation needs to be about the signal, because in today's world of digital media, right? There's so many different places everybody gets their music from. I miss the days of CDs. I'm not the only one. I love my CDs. I love mixing CDs. Unfortunately, CDs have no room in my car anymore, but digital sources do. So, Colin, let's go to you with this. Very important point here is to talk about the high resolution performance that this status DSP does. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about Alpine's philosophy on that and how that works with this particular HDP-D90 unit?
Sure. So a lot of people have gotten a negative connotation, I think, to streaming media sources, and we've gone to a little bit of the belief for some people that CD is the pinnacle of sound quality, and really CD is only capable of 44:1 sampling and 16-bit of resolution. So it's really the entry level into better fidelity in the car. Next step up would be the first level of high res, which is 96 kilohertz sampling, 24-bit resolution. So this is going to deliver about 6 times the level of CD output. Then the next step up is 192 24-bit, which Alpine status products are capable of. This pushes that envelope even further and gives you another 6 times the amount of data and information in the signal path itself. So it's one of the things that people look at when they're talking about high res is that sampling rate. That sampling rate is how many times it's looking at the digital information and how many times it's conveying it. I liken it kind of to an old term called interlacing on a TV. If any older heads are out there, you probably know what I'm talking about. The TVs used to have interlacing, and it would show you half the image of it at a time. And it worked them back and forth so fast that your brain seamed it together as one image. That's kind of how sampling works. It's just showing you bits of the information at one time, and it kind of fools your brain into thinking one solid image. The more sampling you have, though, the better of a job it does at giving you that full picture instead of just pieces at a time.
Well, I'll tell you what, Colin, that was a wealth of knowledge in one little spiel. Thank you for breaking out all those numbers and math for us. Now, in a real time, though, let me go to Chris with this. Somebody who's putting this in their vehicle obviously cares about the quality of the sound and the experience, the resolution. What would you recommend as a source? With so many different digital media formats out there, what would you say is probably the best option?
The best option that you're going to get for utilizing the status feature set as well as its performance is probably going to be Tidal or a high-res streaming service, or you want to use actually a storage device where you could connect into it and actually get true high-res out of that.
Mm-hmm. What about from a source unit? Any options there, Colin?
Yep. So our 21DA headphone, that's an inside term, but 21DA refers to our ILX 507, ILX F509, and ILX F511 head units. Those head units have an embedded title app. A lot of people don't realize that when you're using CarPlay, the max resolution is 48K 16-bit, which is maybe a hair above CD. But high res gets you to 9624-bit. The only way you're doing that is in our embedded app. So our head units are the only ones able to stream high-res content. The only ones I know of anyway. Somebody out there can correct me at home if somebody else has come out with it in recent times, but to my knowledge, only ones that offer this right now.
So very cool. If you're going to, in the market, you're doing a DSP, you have an opportunity to change your source unit. The ILX units with their native title app can push out that information at the resolution you want. Okay, so that's a good conversation about resolution. Let's talk about a couple of the physical things, right, that make this HDP-D90 kind of special. I remember doing the training with our friend Eric Brooks when he talked about F1 status, and I was just blown away with some of the small, minute details that was put into that. But hey, Status got some tricks of their own with a lot of things that have to do with proprietary componentry. So what can you tell us about that, Colin?
So we actually use copper-plated chassis on our Status DSP and our Status amplifiers. We use black printed circuit boards to minimize IR light inside of the amplifier and inside of the processor amplifier. We also use some of our own proprietary componentry. If you were to open up these products, you would see that a lot of the caps and output devices actually say Alpine on them. So we utilize a lot of our own parts in these builds. We're not choosing off-the-shelf componentry. This stuff, we pulled out all the stops, and we're creating a truly high-fidelity product that performs much above even its price point allows it to. And thanks in part to some of that trickle-down technology we mentioned from F1.
As Colin mentioned, the reason why that we use copper-plated chassis in the HDP-D90 is for high-quality sound output. It's going to give you a noise reduction. It's going to give you better signal to noise ratio. And I mean, if we know anything about high res and what it can do, our DSP does a signal to noise ratio of 110 dB, which is mental.
High.
That is mental for an amplifier, let alone a DSP and amplifier.
So if you guys are geeky about signal to noise ratio, like you should be, that is very high, because if we look at the DSPs in the market that are available, I will gauge that many of them don't reach that kind of number. And just so you know, the higher the number, the cleaner the sound, just in case you didn't know. Okay. The last tidbit here, I mean, we could spend all day and dive, and this is not the show for that. I did want to mention, if you're curious about Alpine DSPs, Colin did a great job. Check on CMA Networks. He has a whole workshop in the DSP section talking about and breaking out the 4 different DSP offerings that Alpine has, and you should go check that out for sure. It's called the workshop. But coming back to the HDP-D90, there is a hidden kind of feature that I want to talk about. We're talking about sources. We're talking about getting the best performance, the high resolution. But if you guys are into sound, you should also know about another trick device that they have. It's not a DSP. It is well, I'll put in quotations, source unit of sorts. It's called the HDS-990, and I'm sure Colin's going to explain to you what it is. But if you are into high resolution sound and you want a solution to be able to feed that, sound into your system, this next unit might be the one for you. But more importantly, Colin, I want you to highlight the functionality, the extra added benefit if you combine this new source unit or media source player with the HDP-D90.
So the pinnacle of high-res music is downloaded content, and downloaded content gives you capability all the way up to 192 24-bit. 192 24-bit requires a special player to unlock its potential and deliver the ability to play back that content. And our Status HDS-990 head unit gives you that capability. What the Status head unit also does, it allows you to connect to and control some of the features on the HDP-D90 processor. So it gives you the ability to control master volume, subwoofer level, and even do source selection from the controller. So it really unlocks some more potential and locks those two pieces together and allows them to work together in unison. Once you have that media player in your car, you are now able to play that 192 24-bit content, and you can send it along either a coax digital cable from the head unit to the processor, or just use the analog outputs from the head unit, because the head unit itself is capable of playing that 192 24-bit content on its own. One other thing to be aware of is that HDS-990, while it works beautifully with the HDP-D90 processor, the head unit can be used on its own to feed any outboard amplifiers. So it can be used with any of our other products, even if you're not utilizing the DSP, or even other people's products, although we'd hope you would be using an Alpine.
Well, I, for one, think that is uber cool, because I'm all about the extra added features and the extra control that you can have. So thank you for explaining that to us. So let's bring this all home now. We talked about, the high resolution audio playback. We talked about some of the proprietary componentry. We talked about some added bonus features, such as the control through the HDS-990. So what I really want to know is, who is this unit for? Right? I mean, it's a big brass unit. It does a lot. It's got a lot of channels. It does a lot of processing. So in your opinion, Colin, who is the right customer for this HDP-D90?
By far and away, the Twiggy audiophile, which that includes me. We're want to mention that as Alpine, we're a group of enthusiasts. The guys that I talk to and work with every day in our office, we're all enthusiasts. We're all music guys. We all love it. And this product was born from that passion for music, really delivers the highest capability out of a processor short of our F1 status gear. This thing is phenomenal, and you guys have to experience it.
All right, I'll leave the last word with you, Mr. Patience. What message do you have for any dealers tuning in that be like, maybe I should give this thing a shot?
I think anyone on the fence about trying this, if you have a customer that's looking for high res, this is the option for you. There isn't any or very many DSPs out there that do the levels that this can do through high res. And then on top of that, you do still have 12 channels of power on your amplified and clean power, right? That's the biggest thing when you're talking about high res. It has nothing to do with can this support it, because a lot of devices can support high res, but how they actually put it out and ensure that it's clean is what makes high res, right? Like, we measure a lot of our stuff. The standard for high res is, hearing up to 20K. A lot of our stuff is measured out at 40K and above. That's not to say the human ears could hear that. It's just given us that room that we need just to kind of play things at 20K or below comfortably.
Hey, a big shout out to my two guests today, both Colin Vargo from Alpine as well as Chris Patience from Gentech, the distribution partner for Alpine in Canada. Now, if you want more information on this DSP or any of the products we talked about on today's show or more, head on over to the website alpine-usa.com. And if you are a dealer in Canada and want to get you some action with this Alpine gear, make sure you connect with the good folks at Gentech Distribution. So here's my takeaway. When status dropped, I was so happy, because I'll be honest, F1 status has always been like way up here, but absolutely unattainable for anyways a guy like me. However, status, like Colin says, makes it ultra affordable. But not only is it affordable, it does everything you want it to do. For years, Alpine is one of the very few Japanese companies in our market that even made DSPs. Sure, others have tried, but really Alpine's the only one that stuck to it. Then they came out with Optum, again, a more solutions-based type of DSP system. This, however, what we're talking about on today's show is for the listener, the ones that care about their sound. And you know what? I love the simplicity. It's all in one package. 12 channels of DSP. 14 channels of DSP, 12 channels of power, more than enough to run an entire system. And to be honest, I don't have the trunk space like I used to have. So this thing just fits the bill. That's it for this CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.